if you're a new real estate investor, success could be just getting your first property.
Mm-hmm.
So you get there and you're excited, and then you just meet somebody that has 10.
Mm-hmm.
Tanner, have you ever hit a milestone in life and instead of feeling free, you just felt trapped or empty and just can't get over that shaking feeling of something should have been joyful, but it doesn't feel that way?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, most recent was after 10 years of college, I finally graduated. And well, in the grind and doing the work every week, every month, it almost was more fulfilling pursuing that than when I actually got my degree. And now what? Because there's, the way I explained it to my wife is like, when you get your real estate license, you study for it, you take all the boring classes and do all the things. And when you get your license, boom, now I'm allowed to conduct business. So it's like a permission to move on and operate as a real estate agent. And when I got my broker license, it was the same thing. It was exciting. And because it was another stepping stone. When I got my degree, nothing came of it. Like I used the stuff that I learned in school, but the degree doesn't matter. It's not like now I'm qualified for another position. So there was definitely a lot of emptiness with that, where there was no progress. It was like I'm still doing the same thing every day. It didn't catapult me any further. Like, yes, it's an accomplishment, but I think that if you don't tie some kind of personal reward to the thing that you're accomplishing, then it's going to feel empty. And entrepreneurs, I can't remember who said it, but they have the two wolves constantly battling of a almost narcissistic feeling of self-importance, like egotism, and this loathing self-worth problem of never being enough. And those two wolves are constantly battling each other. And so accolades and accomplishments are almost, I don't say self-deprecating, but it's this imposter syndrome of like closing a big deal. Like, yeah, that's exciting. But then immediately afterwards, there is a little bit of panic that sets in.
So I contemplated not speaking of this, but I guess I'll just, this topic's kind of popped in my head. So this is my first full month that I feel like in the plumbing business that I've kind of been able to start pulling some levers. Like the first 6 weeks or so was just getting to know the people, get some software going and stuff like that. And we've had pretty good growth this month. And before we started recording, I had a text message from my partner. And he said, I think we're going to hit, or I think we just hit X on the revenue, which is about 25% higher than they've ever hit in 1 month. Mm-hmm. So 25% month growth over their best month ever. And while I'm excited about it, to your point, I'm almost more fearful because I'm like, I just set a new standard. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not my floor.
And you have this internal conversation of, what if I just got lucky and I can't sustain that?
Correct. Mm-hmm. What if this was just beginner's luck? Mm-hmm. And now I'm like, holy crap. Like, this is the expectation, not only of myself, but what the team's going to expect.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, can you do this next month? Mm-hmm. Or can we do this next month? And yeah, so it's a little scary. And yeah, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
So, do you feel a lot of this is because of the illusion of success, what we will prescribe success as being?
I think so. I think societally we see success as the Olympian that stands on top of the podium with a big, gold necklace. That is their accomplishment, and they get to hang that on their wall and look at it for the rest of forever. And in business, there is none of that, because as soon as you hit that accomplishment milestone, now it's back to the grind for the next cycle. Like you said, if your cycle is the month, you had a great month, but there's no like you don't go on vacation now and spend the next month going, oh yeah, we had such a good month. Like, no, you're right back to the grind trying to do it again. Yeah. So I think that there is, because of the cycles of business, that there is no time to stop and smell the flowers.
I think it's also going back to illusions of success, what we define success as. Because if you're a new real estate investor, success could be just getting your first property. Mm-hmm. So you get there and you're excited, and then you just meet somebody that has 10. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, I got to get to 10. And then like get to 10 and you meet somebody that has 100. Mm-hmm. And it's always climbing that ladder. It's
moving the goalpost.
Yeah. It's keeping up with the Joneses. Mm-hmm. Like unless you're Elon Musk, richest dude on the planet, and I'll have all these billion-dollar companies, like he doesn't have anybody to look up to, but we're always looking up to somebody. And so I think that's what gives us the illusions of success. So we get there and we get in these bigger rooms, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. But then we get imposter syndrome all over again.
But do you think Elon Musk is happy?
Well, I think that goes back to use the illusion of success analogy again. Like, by my metrics, Elon might be rich and, the richest dude on earth, this, that, and the other, but I wouldn't call him successful. He doesn't seem happy. Mm-hmm. His midnight tweets and his rants and his failed relationships and all that stuff, that's not by the metric that I measure success. Mm-hmm. Or I don't, for me, success, obviously it changed over the course of my lifetime, but as Paul says, like, I want to win the race. I want to know that I fought a good fight. Mm-hmm. So for me, that success is more than business.
When I saw an interview with Elon Musk where they're saying, the interviewer was saying, oh, Elon, everyone in America would love to be you. And he's like, no, he's like, they don't want to be me. He's like, they want what I have without having to work for it. And he talked about how there's something broken up there where he can't turn it off. He can't sleep. He can't, he has to keep building, keep growing. And it's like an obsession that he has to keep going. But he doesn't feel it. And not to speak for him, but from the interviews I've seen, he doesn't feel accomplished. He will feel accomplished when someone lives on Mars. Like, that's when he'll feel accomplished. So yeah, he's built well.
Or will he just look for the next thing?
Exactly. But that's his milestone, is that, yes, he's achieved a substantial amount of wealth, like more than anyone in history, but he still doesn't feel like he's made it yet because he hasn't accomplished what his North Star is. No. And if that North Star is something that's so far, you say shoot for the moon and maybe you'll land on some stars. He's shooting for Mars. Like that is something that might not be accomplished in his entire lifetime, but he enjoys the journey of pursuing it.
I'm pretty sure I could be wrong on this, but initially he said, we'll not colonize Mars in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. But now I've read or seen in recent things that he's like, I think we can get there in the next 20 years or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, him moving the goalpost.
Yeah, even closer, which is opposite to most. But I think that goes to our previous conversation about doing the boring thing long enough. Elon Musk is a good example of living in his office because it was more efficient because he's there for the employees whenever they need him, and paying himself a tiny salary, and tiny is millions of dollars, but relative to the revenue that
he was only taking $1 from Tesla.
Yeah, and took everything else in stock.
Yeah, so he took $1 and then California Supreme Court or something said he had to take minimum wage.
Right.
So he was literally getting paid whatever California minimum wage is to run Tesla.
And the other side of that is people say they want Elon Musk's wealth, but he has bet his entire net worth 4 or 5 times over. Like, there's been multiple opportunities for him to invest billions of dollars, and those paid off. How many people are willing to invest their entire net worth? Like, if someone has a net worth of $200,000, are they willing to bet all of that in hopes that you can turn it into $400,000? Most people aren't willing to take that kind of a risk.
Yeah, he's chasing that. What he, I don't even know, deems. I don't even know if he deems anything as successful. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. You brought up a point earlier about basically like you're running, you're chasing something without ever really checking back in with the why. Is that, I mean, kind of a safe bet? What, I feel like a broken record because we go back to this quite regularly, but having your North Star, having your why, does that help you with success? Or helps you determine what success is for you, I guess is a better way to say it.
I think it should. If you define success as a dollar amount, a net worth amount, an income amount, then it's quantitative. You can meet that and you're successful. But if it's qualitative, where it's like we talked about before, if the difference of I want to get down to 10% body fat and 180 pounds and whatever like that, you can hit that. And then you've now been successful. But if it's, I want to live a healthier life and I want to live a long life, then how do you know when you've obtained that success? I think that there's more power in the pursuit of that success than there is an actual destination.
Yeah, I think it comes back to a more quantifiable why versus why do you want the 10% body fat? Why do you want all that stuff? And it comes back to, well, I want 1 million followers on Instagram or whatever, YouTube or in total. But it's chasing false finish lines.
Right. Which I think finish lines are good. Like Cody Sanchez talks about, if you are saying we're going to hit this revenue goal in 3 months, well, how can I consolidate that down and to do it in a week? Or we're going to, I think those checkpoints are important because then you can measure efficiency, but then the goal is efficiency. It's not the dollar amount itself.
So I think a good analogy, I don't know how familiar you are with Delta Force selection, but in Delta Force,
I've never been. But,
yeah, neither have I, but I've watched on how it is. There's no end in Delta Force selections. You go, they say, be at this spot at this time with this gear. You start off there, and all they do is give you the next checkpoint. So your only mission is to get to the next checkpoint. And when you get to the next checkpoint, they give you the next one. This could go on for 12 hours, go for 36 hours. I don't know exactly how it works. But then at each checkpoint, I think there's like a pass fail. Like, so the cadre's there and they're either like, go to the car here, or here's your next destination. And so I think that's almost a better way to live life and to have businesses. Like you have your North Star, like I want to get to 100 followers, on this podcast. We'll use this podcast as an example. Okay, we get to 100 followers. Okay, so let's set a goal for 500 followers. But you don't ever have an end goal. Like your goal is to try to serve as many people as possible. And those are just checkpoints along the way that you can do your metrics. The goal shouldn't be to get X number of followers. The goal should be to improve so many people's lives.
And like, as far as the feeling of accomplishment, it's like, I remember doing 15, 20 mile ruck marches in the Army. You have that finish line where you get outside the dining facility after making a 20-mile loop, and you come back, you've been marching through the night, and you get to go in and have a warm breakfast. Like, that is the feeling of accomplishment of we made it. Like, there's not a lot of that in business. And so I think, one, it's important, like you said, to keep giving yourself checkpoints along the way, but also to celebrate your wins. And celebrate, like I said, doesn't mean take a month off and go, relax in Hawaii. Sometimes it means just take a moment to acknowledge that you accomplished something and then get back into it.
Okay. So you realize that you're winning. You're setting, some kind of metric, or I keep saying the wrong word, but you rewarded yourself. That's the word I was looking for. You rewarded yourself in some way. Now you get back on the bike and you're pedaling. But what happens when you still feel stuck, if you will? Like you've accomplished this, but you feel stuck and you have restlessness, anxiety, stress, and these things are kind of holding you back from the next thing. How do you grow out of that?
I think getting clear on what you're measuring, if you're measuring your success as a runner on, can I get under a 4-minute mile? Like, good luck. You're gonna live a whole life of failure. The same with Albert Einstein said, if you measure an elephant's intelligence based on its ability to climb a tree, it'll grow up its whole life thinking it's stupid. If you're measuring your success on something that is unattainable, you're setting yourself up for failure. So if it's something that is achievable and you're not achieving it, I think you need to check up from the neck up and look at your effort or what you're doing.
So I think this is why people feel stuck. And this is why we have stress and anxiety and depression and all that stuff, post-COVID at a higher clip than normal, is that people just, they feel stuck. Mm-hmm. Post-COVID, a lot of people feel stuck. And I don't know if we've almost 5 years later, are really out of, I guess we're over 5 years, huh? 2020. Yeah. So yeah, we're over 5 years from when COVID first started. But people they still feel stuck. They still feel trapped in the house. A lot of people, some people haven't. So if that's the case, what would you, obviously you can't give a prescription to everybody, but what's one thing that someone could do to kind of get out of this unstuck feeling they have?
I think it's in measuring the progress, not the result. And if your North Star is to be more healthy, then measure the consistency of, did I step foot in the gym 6 days this week, 5 days this week, 7 days this week? If it's just measuring that, I think in health, people use the scale as their goal. Like, if I'm 220 and just feel chubby or whatever, but I'm going to the gym every single day, then I'm being more healthy than I was when I was 220 and chubby. But I might not see the result of getting down to 180. Like, for me to be 180 is just, I'd have to be anorexic. So if I'm finding success in measuring my consistency or my effort, then there's more to celebrate than the result. The result will come. And that goes back to doing the boring thing. If you measure going to the gym every single day, did I at least spend 5 minutes in the gym every single day? Celebrate that.
Yeah, I think, and for me, especially when it comes to religion, my walk, I find myself in the gap. So talking about the book, The Gap and the Gain. And I think you're going to survive?
No.
Choking on the water.
Can't breathe water.
But going back to the Gap and the Gain book, I think that is one of the major things that I've struggled with in my religious walk is I see what these people have written about, and Paul talks about the winning the race, and I'm like, am I winning the race? And so I'm constantly measuring myself up from where I want to be versus where I came from. And I think that's a lot of issues with why people feel stuck, why we have this anxiety and this depression and stress, because we're keeping up with the Kardashians, like we're trying to do these things that maybe you're an elephant and not a fish, like you shouldn't be measuring yourself by that standard. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. And I can definitely see real world examples of that. Like we went to a baseball game, and when they pull up the players and they show how old they are and where they went to college and all that stuff. And I'm like, holy crap. Now I'm getting to the point where these guys are like 10 years younger than me. Like, and I played baseball growing up. I'm like, imagine if I stuck with it. I'm like, it's very easy to fall into that trap of not seeing how far I've come in one area and seeing how short I fell in another area.
Yeah, I think you're the quote that you used with the elephants. I'm not even going to go off on the tangent of school, but that's I think it starts there, is like we're all giving a standard that we're measured to in school. And if you don't get the A, you don't get the B, and you just kind of keep falling down that. And I have a feeling, I mean, it's just my personal belief, but that's where it all comes from. But not everyone is that elephant. They're not made to swim in the ocean. Some people learn different. I know I learn different than sitting there and listen to a lecture all day.
Well, and a perfect example of this, our youngest is 4 years old. She turns 5 in September. The cutoff for kindergarten is August. And so she falls just behind that line. They'll let her take a test to see if she's ready for it. And so we went to go bring her in for her testing yesterday. And they spent all of 5 minutes with her and then came out and said, yeah, based on what we see, we don't think she's ready yet. Like, my wife and I were livid at, really, how can you measure their readiness for kindergarten off of drawing shapes? Like, that's ridiculous. And they didn't even, so there's multiple stages. And after they do the initial test, they move on to an IQ test and, communication test and all this stuff. And we're like, do the whole thing. Like, you'll see that, like, she's smart, she's ready. And on the drive home, like, my wife and I were upset because we're like, she is a smart girl. Like, she can handle this. And the conversation that we had was, well, one, my wife brought up, like, am I upset because I thought that I was going to have the freedom to work this year, and now they're telling me that she has to stay home for another year? Or am I really upset because I don't like the standards that they're measuring her on? And I had the same thoughts. And I said, well, I think that there's a part of it that we're not happy with their standards, but also we have to kind of trust the system. As much as we question the education system, they have these things for a reason. And if it's for our daughter's best interest, that she's going to go into this school and she's not cognitively ready to perform at the same level as the other kindergartners, then she's going to grow up her whole life thinking she's stupid, when we really just set her up for failure.
Yeah, because naturally you're going to think the best of your kid. Like, they're the smartest, they're the most athletic, they're the most X, Y, and Z, but that's not always the case. I'm not trying to say your daughter's dumb or anything like that, but that's kind of how things go in life, is that you always think the best of your kids.
Well, and for example, one of the tests, like, you have to draw shapes. She did really well with drawing the shapes. She had, good penmanship and all that stuff. And then they gave her some blocks and they said, okay, count out 7 blocks. And there was 15 blocks there. She counted up to 12 and then wanted to start stacking blocks. And she said, okay, you went a little bit over. Can you take away, or can you go back to 7? And so she went from 12 to 11. And she's like, that's not quite 7. And so it was just that right there, whether it's an attention span thing or she truly doesn't understand the premise of counting, she's not ready to move on to kindergarten. And the same is true with our 6-year-old son. 6? Yeah, he's 6. We had to hold him back from kindergarten because not because he wasn't smart enough for it. He can do this stuff, but he had an attention issue where he just wanted to run and be crazy and play when the teacher, had him. So it was more behavioral, that he wasn't mature enough to go to kindergarten. So now he's going into kindergarten this year. And so customizing the teaching plan to the student, I mean, it's not easy in public school, but understanding that setting them up for failure is not the solution. And so we had to really do a heart check of, is it because we thought that we were going to have an empty house this year and be able to focus on work?
So that brings up a good point, is when you're deviating from what you define success as, it's important to recenter on what true freedom is. So in this case, talking about your family, time freedom to work on growing businesses and stuff like that. But what is the ultimate goal? Is the ultimate goal having a 18-year-old child that's ready to go in the world and take care of themselves? Or is the goal to make it through kindergarten at 4 years old, or whatever? So it's what metric you want to go back to.
Yeah.
But it's at the end of the day, you have to recenter on what freedom means to you, I think.
And believe me, there was a moment where we turned into Karens and wanted to write every letter and cause a storm. Like, I don't think we'd ever actually do it, but when we had that realization of, I almost want to say accountability, of looking at the problem as a problem, and we could feel a type of way about it, but it is, basically it is what it is. I think that was a moment of growth for both of us to realize, like, we can change. We've talked about this with the weather, right? The weather's not good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the situation's not good or bad, but our outlook on it is. And so changing, and my wife's saying, you know what, this is great because I'll have another year with my last, child of 7 to really spend time with her and teach her the things and in a way that she, we're not going to be able to connect with kids ever again. Like, we'll have grandkids someday, but it's a lot different. So her changing the framework on how she was thinking about the problem took away that anxiety. And so when we talked about the feeling of success, like, I'm sure there was a moment where we felt like failures because she wasn't ready for kindergarten. But changing what we're measuring, I think, is what took away that anxiety.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was a great way to wrap it up, is that you were in the gap of what you thought you had expectations of where your kids should be. And then when the school or whoever did the study or testing said different, like, you Nicole immediately went in the gap. I'm like, what do you mean? This is where we're supposed to be, not here. And so you felt, as you alluded to, unsuccessful as a parent, or as a provider, or whatever emotional feelings you had. But
the whole idea of it is to be unbiased, and that they have an objective standard. And if you don't meet that objective standard, then you're not ready yet.
well, we could argue if it's objective.
Well, yes, of course. And my wife's argument is that there are 5 and 6 year olds that go into kindergarten that don't take that same test.
But you were able to, or Nicole was able to, recalibrate based on, I get an extra year with my kid. They're not going to graduate high school at 17. They'll graduate high school at 18. So now I get an extra year in high school with them. It's our last child. So there's all these ways that you're able to recalibrate and bring it back to what success means to you and as a family versus what the school says.
And had my wife not been level-headed enough, or I not been level-headed enough, then this could have been a slippery slope of just temper tantrum. But because we were able to communicate about it and get realistic with what we were measuring, I think it led to a very productive conversation.
Yeah. And I think you were able to let go of something in order to move forward with the next thing. So like you said, you could have stayed in that gap right there and been Karens about it and wrote 20 letters to 20 different people. And where would that have gotten you? But you let go of it, and it enabled you to move forward. And now you're looking at what success is moving forward versus living in the gap.
Yeah.
So, we'll have to edit some of this out. So what are some tools that people can do in order to let go? And how did you get out of that gap, I guess, so quickly? You said, I got home, angry on the car ride home, got home. What were some of the things that helped you move out?
I think stillness is the key. And there's biblical and stoic principles that talk about just slowing down. And I think when you're too reactionary and you react with impulse, that's where you make bad decisions. And not to say bad decisions are catastrophic or criminal or anything like that, but just reacting in a way that probably is not the way that you want to convey yourself. And so I think slowing down and really looking inward on it and getting to the heart of the problem, whether it's business or family or whatever it is, just peace, be still, right?
Yeah. So what I hear you say is you were able to detach from the situation.
Right.
Going back to discipline equals freedom. That's one of the principles that when you're in the suck, it's easy to get bogged down. Like you're going down the drain with all the junk, but you have to step out and get out of the downward spiral that you're in order to be able to grow and to grow out of a situation.
And I think that when we talk about accomplishments, there is no one waiting to throw you a party at every milestone. So I think when you can take a moment, breathe, and give yourself an acknowledgement of your accomplishment, then it'll give you the empowerment to continue moving forward.
Who's that? Is it Cameron Haynes or something like that? Says no one cares, do more, or do work or something like that. So, which a lot of that's true. Like people only, it's hard to get to the upper echelon where people actually do care about your success. Like we'll use this podcast as an example. Like if we disappeared tomorrow, chances are no one would really care. To be completely honest.
Yeah.
But if Joe Rogan's podcast disappeared tomorrow, he just said, "Hey, this is my last episode. I'm not doing this ever again." Plenty of people would care. So
that's why I love the silent chuckle behind when people are called an overnight success. Like, because the person who they're talking about always is like, there's no overnight successes. No one just woke up and said, I'm going to try this, and it worked and it blew up and whatever. There is years and decades of behind the scenes effort with no reward that led them to blowing up. And we talked about that exponential growth curve. It is years of flatline to then boom, pop. And what people talk about is that popping moment. That's the overnight success, but they don't see all the time that led to that point.
Well, I think it post COVID and the way social media has changed, it's easier to do that because you can create one viral moment that gets 50 million views. What's the one dude, the Richmond?
That's crazy you say that, because that's one of the guys that just came to mind. Is they called him an overnight success. He'd been playing music his whole life,
but he went overnight success in the regard that he went from zero to the most downloaded song ever, or single or whatever it was.
Right,
like that was a huge. But it was one moment. Jelly Roll, that's another one. Like during COVID, he just started recording on YouTube. Or releasing stuff on YouTube, and one country singer saw it, and boom.
Another example of someone who dedicated their life to music and performing.
Correct.
That overnight success. And so I think this is a perfect example of what you measure matters. If you're measuring their success based on the number of views or the number of downloads, then sure, yeah, they're an overnight success because they had no views and then they had millions and millions of views. So that's an overnight success. But if you look at the effort that it took to get there, they didn't just pick up a guitar one day and figure out, I can kind of play this thing, and then it blew up.
Yeah.
This is years of effort that led to this viral moment. And I agree, there are, teeny boppers on the internet that can go post a video and they get millions of views, but what does that really do for their life? Like if they're measuring their success on the number of views and then they go back to their job at Chick-fil-A, that's not how I measure success.
No. Go off the deep end with this one, but what's her name? The Hatua girl. Fremont. Like she had this overnight success, from one viral moment, and
now she's going to prison.
Not that I follow. Is that what I know? She
did a crypto rug pull.
Did she?
Yeah.
I know she was going down one path and it veered off. Like I said, I don't follow her enough to.
I don't know the details of it. I just heard a headline of doing a crypto rug pull, but that's a perfect example of if it's easy, it's not sustainable.
Yeah. So she had an overnight success off from one stupid
viral moment,
and it didn't fare well for her, I guess.
Right. That right there is an example of the lottery winners, of the kids who get drafted in the NBA and then blow all their money and they go broke, get an injury, and now they're worse off than if they never got drafted. those are the overnight success stories.
I
So
would
it's like,
say NBA's overnight success.
well, yes, of course, that's years of playing sports, but still, the lottery winner is a better example because what I don't remember what the statistic is, but it's like 95% of them are broke right afterwards. And
It's
even
high in the NBA.
even if I'm not talking about lottery winners,
lottery, yeah.
yeah.
Same difference.
But there was no gradual effort that got them there. That's the overnight success that's not sustainable. So it's like a fire. If you put together a fire pit and you get it burning hot and then you start adding wood, it'll burn really hot for a long period of time. But if you pour kerosene on a piece of wood, it'll burn through that and then it won't stay lit because it's quick, fast, and hot, and then it's done. So I think that the framework behind this long-term doing the boring thing is what you need to not burn it out and outlive your success.
Yeah. And, just kind of sum a lot of this up, I guess, is define what success means for you in whatever aspect of life you're trying to measure it.
Mm-hmm.
It could be physical health, it could be business, it could be work, it could be family, it could be spiritual. Like you have all these areas of freedom and that you're trying to attain and that you look for success in. And how do you make waypoints along the lines, like going back to my Delta operator analogy earlier, celebrate those wins when you get to that waypoint. Be it, I want to start a podcast and 100 followers. How do you celebrate that? How do you celebrate 1,000 followers, 10,000, all the way up? But know that that's not the goal. The goal should be to help people, or whatever your goal is in that.
But even when it talks about revenue, like if in the trucking company example, if I made $20,000 this month in gross revenue, but I drove 20,000 miles, like that's like 10 cents a mile of profit. That's not really much to write home about.
And that goes back to how do you measure success?
What you measure matters.
Yeah. So, and then when you get off track, it's getting back on track by recalibrating what you need to do based on what truly matters to you.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, revenue, like, does it really matter? Like you can make $1 million in a day, week, month, year, whatever, but spend 100 or $1.2 million and be in the hole. So does it measuring revenue really truly matter? So, just recalibrate as often as you possibly can. If you get off track, just recalibrate. So, before we end, I guess I got one question, or do you have anything you want to add before we end? So I'll end with this question. What are you holding on to because it looks like success, but deep down it's just holding you back? So what can you let go of? Going back to Pareto principle, what can you delete? So how can you delete one thing to make yourself a little bit more successful in the end? So